Hey everyone, welcome back to the Broke Coder. Now, in this video, we'll be talking about what object-oriented programming is and how you can properly understand it and use it in Python. So without much further ado, let's get started. So, what do we know about object-oriented programming? Let's just start from the scratch. But wait, before we go ahead and actually understand what object-oriented programming is, I think it would be better if we try to understand what an object is. Because if you don't know what an object is, you won't be able to understand truly what an object-oriented programming is. So, what is an object? Think of it this way. An object is the result of a plan. It is the product of a plan. Think you have a plan, and whenever you try to do it is the result of that plan, right? Like you had a plan to go out with your friends, and you do go out. The thing that you go out, that is the result. That is your object. That is the product of your plan. And what is that plan called in a programming terminology? That's what a class is. So if a class is a plan that you have, then executing that plan is the object. Now, this is what a typical class looks like in Python. You don't have to worry about understanding each and everything that's shown right now. Just for simplicity's sake, let's just continue with this for now. The class here is named Earth. Let's just call it a class Earth. It has a method that's called showStatus. Methods are functions in class. Functions can act on the data that is present inside classes. There are also two variables used in this class. They are called population and the year. Now, so what are classes? Classes are the blueprint for the thing that you want to represent in a program. Classes are actually used so that you can have as much data as you want in a concise and easy to interfere manner. They have attributes and they have behaviors. Now, these are the two most important properties of classes. But if you don't know what attributes and behaviors are, they are just fancy words for simple terms. Attribute means variables, things that you store data inside, and behavior means methods or functions. Now, each class is just instructions on what happens with the data that is stored inside the variables. You have a class, it has some data. Now that class on the whole is essentially just asking you or informing you what happens with that data, how and when. So let's get back to our previous example, and from that we can see that the method that's highlighted here, which is the init method, it says that I am initializing something. That method is used for initialization. That's why it's called the init method. It's also called, in object-oriented terminology, a constructor. The constructor's job is simple. It is supposed to make sure that whenever an object is created, I will be the first thing that happens. It's like anytime you think about making a plan, there must be something that you do first. Maybe you think about inviting your best friend, or maybe you think about writing down notes, or maybe you think about checking up your calendar. Now, this is that thing. This is the thing that you always do whenever you make an object. Like it said here, that whenever an object is created, it gives initial values to variables, set things up, or initialize stuff. And the next part here that we see down here is the showStatus definition. This is just a normal method in a class. Normal methods implement data. They can change the data, they can print stuff or whatever. It depends on them. Now, what you might notice that the word self. Self is always used whenever you are doing object-oriented programming in Python. Self is a keyword in Python. It is used to reference the instances of the current object. Even if you don't understand what self means, that's perfectly fine. You will get a much more deeper understanding when we actually go to the code. But for now, just think of it as whenever you are mentioning it, you are saying that whenever this method is called, this method will always be called on an object. You can't just call this method out of thin air, right? Like you can't just go to some place and call it a party if you don't have a plan. Similarly, you will never call this method unless you are in an object. So whenever it says self, that means you are referring to the object that's calling this function or this method. Now, in every method in a class must have the keyword self as the first argument. Even if you're passing other arguments, they can follow after self, but self must be the first argument. Before I actually go on to the coding part, there's a few more terms you must bear in mind. Now, don't take them too deep. We will be learning about them when we go to the code, but for now, just knowing about them should be enough. Inheritance means way of reusing code, where your current class acquires code of another class. Inheritance basically means if you have a higher level class and you try to implement a new class, then you can give the newer class properties of the older class. Encapsulation means you are wrapping up data in a different way so that everyone has a different way of obtaining that data. An easy example would be of how you can hide your special stuff from your little brothers and sisters. I do that a lot. I still do that a lot. Never mind. So yeah, that's encapsulation, trying to hide stuff from people. And polymorphism is you being the same in front of different people. Like if it's your good friend, you'll be happy in front of him, you'll smile in front of him. Whereas if it's your enemy, you'd probably tell them to get lost, curse, and God knows what else. So that's polymorphism. You are exhibiting different personalities in front of different people. Similarly, you can create functions that function or behave in a different way in front of different data that you give to them. And we'll cut the video here because let's just face it, if I add code here, it'll go too long. So thank you for watching as far as now. Be sure to watch the next video that I'll be linking up here. You should be able to see it. So go there, watch that video for the code implementation, and I'll be waiting for you guys over there.